Hello, my name is Emma. Romance is one of the most popular genres in the world. Books, shows, movies, animation, there's usually some kind of romantic storyline in everything you consume. For forever, it's been mostly heteronormative, but recently we've opened the door to a lot more representation. Love is a part of people's lives in some form. It's only natural for stories to mirror that. Even though it reigns supreme, dominating the book world, it's one of the most hated on. Whether it be a small part in a big story or a generalization as a whole, lots seem to see it as a major weakness. Their reasons might be it not being a super realistic or seen as a toxic relationship to some. If it's a show or a movie, they can't see the chemistry between the actors, or maybe some get primarily annoyed at a fandom who sees a potential relationship in characters that are supposed to be platonic. This, of course, comes back to preference. Not everyone is going to like something and they don't have to have a reason for it. But why out of every fictional category is this one the punching bag? Why is wanting a relationship between these two main characters so controversial? And can you really control how people consume what you've created once you put it out into the world? Is it even that deep? And, deep or not, if a romantic storyline is written badly, can it ruin a piece of media as a whole? That's something I struggle with a lot in writing my own stories, and that's why I turn to today's sponsor, Skillshare. This summer, I've set out to improve on a lot of things relating to my art, and that includes brushing up on writing character development. Skillshare is the largest learning community with thousands of industry professionals leading premium classes, specializing in film, illustration, design, and of course what I need, writing. I've been following the class Storytelling 101 by Daniel Jose Older. We've all learned about the basics in storytelling, but this class was a refreshing look into really making something compelling. Skillshare even added new features, including tailoring subjects to your particular interests. Do you have some summer goals you'd like to explore this season? I guarantee you can find a class pertaining to it on Skillshare. The first 500 people to use my link in the description below will receive a month free trial, and that is a whole lot of time to learn something. Sign up and learn along with me with Skillshare today. Thank you, Skillshare, and let's get back to the video. Before we get started, and maybe before you comment, no, this is not going to be a straight people are so oppressed, and why can't we have straight shit anymore kind of thing. Hell no. But I have to acknowledge I am a straight cis woman. I'm drawn to fictional stories that portray man and woman relationships. It's just what I relate to, but that doesn't mean I don't enjoy LGBTQ+ relationships either. It's just not something I seek out all the time. But because I am drawn to straight romance, I obviously have a major privilege that not everyone has, and that there are millions of stories for me to consume out there. Sure, it's gotten better, but the amount of gay romance doesn't compare to what is accessible to straight romance. I will touch on LGBTQ+ topics in this video, but I may not get everything correct or touch on everything that needs to be talked about. Please, if you have anything to add that I might have missed or an added element to the conversation, I'd love to hear in the comments below. I want this to be a safe space for everyone who deserves it, and be open to discussion on what's being said. Alright, now let's talk about the major reason I made this video. Spoiler warning if you haven't seen The Bear. FX's The Bear is a show on Hulu starring Jeremy Allen White, who plays the character Carmy. Carmy is a world-famous chef who recently inherited his brother's restaurant after he committed suicide. Him, along with the other characters in the restaurant, try to bring it back from getting closed down. There's something about The Bear that feels really realistic. The restaurant industry can be a stressful time, and the show portrays that very, very well. All the characters develop really nicely and show their flaws very effectively. Everyone deals with their issues differently, everyone gets better, but at some point takes a few steps back. It's great to see a show that progress isn't linear, and I love that. There's things I don't always love about this show, especially in season 3, that I will talk about, but overall, critically, it's a beloved series. In the first episode, we are introduced to Sydney, played by Io Adebri, a chef who is newer to the game. She comes and applies to the beef and is quickly hired. Sydney in the beginning is, in my opinion, used as the eyes of the audience. Since she's being introduced to this restaurant and the characters as we are, she can fill in the gaps by asking necessary questions for us. As the story goes on, Sydney becomes a necessary member to the growth of the restaurant and partnering with Carmy and potentially becoming an owner. Throughout the seasons, we see Sydney and Carmy's relationship grow. Their friendship, like the whole of the show, is intense. They fight and make up, but through their long gazes at each other, it's clear that there's always something being unsaid between them that lingers every time they're together. This intensity has led some fans interpreting their platonic relationship to be, or potentially be, more than that. This thought has been squashed by showrunners, but if you know fandom spaces, that usually doesn't stop anyone, unless it's like certain circumstances. There's 2 infamous scenes in season 2 that fans take as their relationship being more than platonic. 1, the scene when Carmy has a panic attack and the only person who runs across his mind to calm him down is Sydney, and 2, the table scene. I'll let this one speak for itself.
You could do this without me.
I couldn't do it without you.
Yeah, you could.
I wouldn't even want to do it without you. You know, you make me better at this.
You make me better at this.
I mean, tell me, anyone who hasn't seen the show, what do you think of this scene? Even though there's nothing explicitly romantic, I think even the most adamant deniers can admit this does have a level of emotional tension and feels extremely intimate. In season 3, they did squash a lot of that feeling though, and I do wonder if it had something to do with... This is going to be a loaded section, but bear with me. Shipping has been a part of fandom for a long time. I think it really gained traction and momentum on the internet with Tumblr's Super Who Lock era. And I'm going to focus on the lock part in this video. I'm also going to bring in another example to compare it to, The X-Files. Sherlock was a modern take on Sherlock Holmes and John Watson. The show, in its early days, was seen as a really clever and interesting series. Tumblr got a hold of it and it started hardcore shipping Sherlock and John Watson, mostly because of some moments shared between them that really piqued the interest of fans. And they were there, no doubt. This became such a big thing that the showrunners even acknowledged the fans in the show, making fun of them. Huge slap in the face to people who are trying to enjoy a show you created, but I digress. Sherlock and Watson never got together in the end. Through years of speculation, teasing, queer baiting, the show's finale was a bland and poorly done end to a show many fans would call boring after the fact. Maybe some would find it annoying that people were consuming the show only for the hope that they would get together, but if your show doesn't have that much else to offer, can you really blame them? Another example of how fandom affects how the show is perceived is The X-Files, and what I believe is sort of comparable but in a different way. The showrunner had no intention of the characters Mulder and Scully getting together, and they didn't for a long time. Their relationship was always written as platonic until it wasn't, and it was written so all the things before they got together were still supposed to be seen as them just being partners. I believe it was described by Scully as a flip being switched suddenly, and her seeing Mulder as someone who she loved romantically. Still kind of dismissive of the actors' chemistry, but in the end they got together. Do I think this would have happened without fandom uproar? No, I think the creator would have gone with his first intention. Now, these are 2 similar situations, but they're obviously different because Mulder and Scully are much more normalized than Sherlock and Watson could have been. I'm just bringing these 2 situations up as an example to show that I am acknowledging how fandom and shipping can affect how creators of a show view their own work. Shipping culture kind of got under the writer's skin in different ways with both of these situations. Now, put a pin in this thought for a moment as we circle back to the bear. Sydney and Carmy's relationship was widely speculated in the fandom, and there's a lot of controversy surrounding them. Many people insisted that they were only platonic soulmates and that there isn't enough male-female friendship portrayed in media. Hold on. For anyone wanting some recs, here you go. If you seek platonic relationships between men and women, these are some good ones I've seen. Editing Emma here, I feel like I sounded a little condescending here. That was not my intention at all. I completely understand the want for platonic male-female relationships, of course, and I love them too. I just think this argument is used a little too much with Sydney and Carmy when there are really strong ones already out there. That's it. Back to the video. Others argue that there was a power imbalance between Carmy and Sydney because Carmy was much more experienced in the cooking world. I can definitely see that, but in my opinion, if the show was trying to portray that, it would have pushed it farther. And though it's clear Carmy does get into his head to the point that Sydney gets pushed to the wayside, and he's definitely got some work to do in making it up to her, in later seasons, it's clear the show is putting them together as equals and partners in a business, even if they're not quite there yet. Some have said they seem like a mentor-mentee kind of dynamic, but when you look at what the bear presents from the cooking world, they often show that learning from someone else is almost essential to becoming better in this industry. Yes, it can be interpreted as an imbalance of power, but we often see in the show learning amongst peers. Some POC have attributed this adamant denial to people not being able to see a black woman with a white man. And though I cannot lend a perspective in this, it's important to mention in this subject. It's okay to not want them together, obviously, but in some discussion posts, it's clear some fans do have a racist view towards this pairing, and it's very concerning to see.
Interesting relationship dynamic. They have like a lot of chemistry. People ship them because that's what people do. But apparently people who are new to the concept of shipping are having like a meltdown saying like, I don't understand why men and women can't just be platonic. And I'm like, where have I heard that before? Not to say that's not true. Like obviously these two can have a perfectly platonic soulmate relationship and that would be amazing. But the main reason I'm making this TikTok is because of the fact that so many people are so adamantly against the concept of these two being together, and it's something that I've seen so many times before that it's almost like it's like textbook. Every time there is a black person and a white person in the same show and portion of the fandom ships the couple, the two, or a movie in this case, ships the two together, people have meltdown. The main criticisms when people ship these kinds of ships are, why can't men and women just be friends? We need to see more platonic relationships between men and women. He's actually not good enough for her. She's a strong, independent woman. She don't need no man in this case.
From my view, I can see how people see them as potentially being more than friends. Their relationship feels more akin to the feeling I get from a lot of romantic relationships on screen. Long gazes and intense moments aside, there is a clear chemistry between the two actors. But it will not happen according to the showrunners. So what is the fans shipping them together? Fun! It's a fun time. I understand having someone disagree with you is annoying, but why does it have to be such a fight and discussion? I don't think it's wrong to interpret them as platonic, but I also think it's okay to see them as something more. And at the same time, I acknowledge that this can change the course of the show greatly, as I said. The internet is a very loud place. It's small, but loud. Fans have the ability to make change to media. We've seen it done a lot, but I believe the best course of action is to accept fan feedback, yes, but hold your own. It's clear the intention of the Bear showrunners is very strong. I doubt they'll budge on what they're going for, but I do fear that this kind of situation will change their relationship, whether we lean towards a romantic partnership or not. At the end of the day, most of us just want to see them interact, at least I do. Platonic or romantic, I think the relationship is really interesting. I think what those who deny and get annoyed with shippers don't realize is that they could be affecting the show just as much. Maybe because people were so outraged that they could be perceived as romantic, the showrunners decided to change their dynamic or even lessen their connection. And unfortunately, in my opinion, that's happening a little bit in The Bear's newest season. Hey, maybe they'll switch it up again for season 4, but I'm not so sure anymore. Their friendship feels a lot more toned down, but it might be because of inner turmoil. The Bear is very angsty. Now, there is another component to The Bear that I have yet to mention. That is another character that is either loved or hated depending on where you look. What some fans of The Bear say is that a focus on romance between Sid and Carmy would ruin the show, but to push back on that a bit, romance is already becoming a big factor on the show between Claire and Carmy. Claire is a character introduced in season 2 who was a crush of Carmy's in the past. From what she has been so far, her main purpose is to be the girl Carmy has a relationship with, and not much else. We rarely see her outside of interactions with Carmy, and fans' reactions have been mixed. Every character in this show is complex, that feels very human in the way that they are flawed. However, Claire, in my opinion, fails to hold her own next to the others. So unfortunately, I don't find myself invested in their relationship really at all. I found this arc so bland that I was extremely surprised to see it carry over into the next season and potentially into the next season. Oh boy. I believe there are people who find this relationship good. I just think it's the minority. People's reactions are usually indifference or pure hatred. And while I can see where the hatred might come from, I do think it's a little too much sometimes. Like, okay, guys. But I think it's okay to be frustrated with a love interest that wasn't written very well, because she doesn't feel like a person, she feels like Carmy's girlfriend. And I know The Bear's focus is not what's outside of the restaurant world most of the time, but if we are going to focus on a romance, shouldn't it at least match the tone of the rest of the show, at least a little bit? Now, in a video defending romantic plotlines, why am I hating so much? Because while I do enjoy romantic devices, they can also be really poorly done or not to my taste, like anything done in any genre. However, when it's done right, it can be some of the most fun and engaging things I consume. I wish Claire's storyline could be that, but it's just not. I don't think a romantic storyline between Sydney and Carmy would ruin The Bear, because it would just be an elevation of what they have already. Though, I can see a platonic route being the best way to go, since it's clearly been shown the writers maybe can't make a story like this that compelling. We are told time and time again that Claire is the right person for Carmy by Carmy himself and the characters around him, but we are rarely shown that this is the case, and intentional or not, at this very moment, it's confusing. I don't want to yuck someone's yum. If you like Claire and Carmy together, do your thing. Don't let me stop you. I'll just see how it plays out. There's been so much pointing fingers and saying cringe for things people just like to watch or read in their free time. Not everything has to be deep and thought-provoking, and not everything has to be completely platonic in The Bear. Like I said, I like them either way. If they got together, I'd be happy. All I want is them to interact in some way. I think fans of The Bear want romance out of the question because it will cheapen it somehow. Romantic movies, no matter how large the praise, still fall under movies without that focus because those movies usually are geared towards women and thus a lower quality. This thought process has changed a little bit of recent, but I do think subconsciously those kinds of thoughts still linger, especially in the book world, and they are seen as a guilty pleasure most of the time. No matter how good the book is, a book written by a man will usually get the spotlight as something superior. I'm sure some of you will disagree. Within the Bears fandom, it's not that popular of an opinion to even fathom that they could be together. And come on, is it really that hard to fathom? I mean, they're both hot. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know this video might be a little weird to some of my audience, I'm sure. Sometimes I just want to talk about stuff that piques my interest. I know the bear is not very art kid core, but I hope you enjoy listening regardless. Again, I'd love to know your thoughts, your perspectives. I'm curious. Also, please be kind in the comments, even if you don't personally agree. If you enjoy this video and would like to see more, please like, share, subscribe, and as always, peace.